There is a small island in Italy that many people believe is cursed. Fishermen avoid sailing near it. Local residents refuse to visit it, and for decades the government has restricted access to the island. This mysterious place is known as Poveglia Island. Located in the Venetian Lagoon between Venice and Lido, Poveglia may look peaceful from a distance. Trees grow across the island. Old stone buildings stand quietly among the vegetation. The surrounding water moves slowly, reflecting the cloudy sky above. At first glance, it seems like a calm and forgotten place, but beneath this quiet appearance lies one of the darkest histories in Europe. For centuries, Poveglia Island has been associated with disease, death, and terrifying legends. Many people today consider it one of the most haunted islands in the world. To understand why this island has such a reputation, we need to travel back many centuries. The first known settlements on Poveglia Island date back to the Roman era. During that time, small communities used the island as a place to live and work. Fishing and farming were the main sources of food for the people who lived there. The surrounding water provided natural protection from enemies and invaders. For many years, the island remained a quiet settlement within the Venetian Lagoon, but this peaceful life would not last forever. Everything changed during the 14th century. During this time, Europe was struck by one of the most devastating pandemics in human history. The disease became known as the Black Death. The plague spread rapidly across the continent. Entire towns were destroyed by the sickness. Millions of people died within just a few years. Cities were filled with fear as the disease continued to spread. Venice was one of the busiest trade centers in Europe. Ships arrived every day carrying goods from distant countries. Unfortunately, these ships sometimes carried diseases as well. The leaders of Venice needed a way to stop the plague from entering the city. To prevent the spread of disease, they created quarantine islands. These islands were used to isolate sick people before they could reach the city. Poveglia Island became one of the most important quarantine locations. Ships suspected of carrying infected passengers were forced to stop near the island. Anyone showing signs of illness was removed from the ship and taken to Poveglia. Once on the island, they were separated from the rest of society. Doctors at the time had very little understanding of how diseases spread. There were no antibiotics or modern treatments. Many of the people sent to the island were already very sick. Thousands of them died shortly after arriving. Mass burial pits were dug across the island. Bodies were burned or buried in large graves. Historians believe that more than 100,000 people may have died on the island during the plague years. Over time, the soil itself became filled with ashes from plague victims. Even today, some experts believe a large part of the island's soil contains human remains. After the plague waves eventually passed, the island was abandoned for long periods of time, but its dark reputation remained. Local fishermen began avoiding the island. Some claimed they heard strange sounds coming from the land at night. Others said they saw shadows moving among the ruined buildings. Stories began spreading that the spirits of plague victims haunted the island. Despite these stories, the island was used again during later outbreaks of disease. During the 18th century, Venice continued using Poveglia as a quarantine station. Travelers suspected of carrying illness were isolated there for weeks. If they survived the quarantine period, they were allowed to continue their journey. If they became sick, they remained on the island. Many of them died there. By the early 20th century, the island found a new purpose. A psychiatric hospital was built on Poveglia Island. Doctors and nurses moved into the buildings that had once been part of the quarantine station. Patients suffering from mental illness were brought to the hospital for treatment. At first, the hospital functioned like many others at the time. But strange rumors soon began spreading. Some patients claimed they heard voices whispering in the night. Others said they saw dark figures moving through empty corridors. Many believed the spirits of plague victims still haunted the island. One of the most famous legends involves a doctor who worked at the hospital. According to the story, the doctor became obsessed with performing experimental treatments. Some say he carried out disturbing procedures on patients in secret. Over time, the doctor himself reportedly began losing his sanity. He claimed that the spirits of the island were driving him mad. Eventually, the story says he climbed the bell tower of the hospital. From the top of the tower, he jumped to his death. Some versions of the legend say he survived the fall, but was later killed by an unseen force. While historians debate whether this story is true, the hospital eventually closed. The island was abandoned once again. Without people living there, nature slowly began reclaiming the land. Trees grew through the ruins. Walls cracked and collapsed. Windows shattered from years of storms and wind. Today, the island remains empty. Only ruins remain. A tall bell tower still rises above the trees. Broken buildings stand quietly among the vegetation. Because the structures are unstable, the Italian government has restricted access to the island. Visitors are not allowed to explore the ruins without special permission. Despite these restrictions, the island continues to attract worldwide attention. Ghost hunters and paranormal investigators often describe Poveglia as one of the most haunted places in Europe. Television shows have attempted to investigate the island. However, very few people have ever been allowed to stay there overnight. Even fishermen sometimes avoid the waters near the island. Some claim their fishing nets occasionally pull up bones from the seabed. Whether these stories are true or not, they continue to add to the island's reputation. Today, Poveglia Island remains silent. The buildings are empty. The land is covered with trees. The water surrounding the island moves slowly through the Venetian Lagoon. But the island's dark history continues to fascinate people around the world. Centuries of tragedy, disease, and ghost. Stories have turned Poveglia into one of the most mysterious places in Italy. And that is why this small island remains one of the most forbidden and haunted islands on Earth.